Rock County John Doe, also known as John Clinton Doe, identified as Carl Isaacs Jr. Normally I start out with a history, and this format was voted on in the comments a while back as being the most respectful way to present these cases. However, in this case, some of what I'm going to say isn't pretty, so I'm not going to lead with that, especially because it feels disrespectful and I don't believe Carl Isaacs was a bad guy at heart. The story starts with John Clinton Doe, or JCD, which was the nickname of the unidentified teen found by hunters on November 26, 1995, in a remote wooded area along Turtle Creek in Bradford Township, Rock County, near Clinton, Wisconsin. He was almost 100% skeletal, fully clothed, with distinctive clothing that was considered age appropriate. He was on his stomach, with his arms extended over his head. He was wearing a plaid flannel jacket over his back, and he was wearing a concert t-shirt for a heavy metal group named Venom, along with camo pants. They also state that there was one black tennis shoe next to him, and it was a 1994 Nike Air Bound basketball shoe. A forensic anthropologist determined that he was likely white, 17 to 20, and around 5'6". He had brown hair that went to his collar. They couldn't determine the exact cause of death, but they placed it during the fall or winter of 1994, which means it could have been hypothermia, though some have surmised that it was due to drugs, but there seems to be zero proof in this case, and it's likely this had something to do with a rumor that turned out not to be him. Like so many former Does, they did an isotope test in 2014 on his bones, and they placed his adolescence in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, or Michigan. This led them to believe they were looking for a missing teen from around the same general area where he was found. And they were correct. The Sheriff Knutson, would later explain that Carl Isaacs had not been reported missing prior to his death. When asked about the photograph released, he explained it was an arrest photo. My photo is a little clearer than the ones that you see in most of the websites, but the AI program I normally use to run it through detected what looks like white earrings in my copy, and I suspect that's not accurate, so I did want to say something. The discoloration in the photo exists in the online photos, which was then enhanced by me unintentionally. Rather than mess with it further, I wanted to explain. Sadly, Walworth County authorities knew Carl Isaacs vanished, but despite this, and the fact that his bones were found in a relatively similar period, pretty close by, he went unidentified, meaning they knew he was missing, while a neighboring county sheriff's office worked simultaneously for decades to identify his remains. But the one working on behalf of the John Doe had no idea Carl Isaacs ever went missing. Interestingly, Carl was identified after only 2 weeks of investigating his genetic genealogy, but confirmation of his identification took an extensive amount of time. This turns out was because there weren't any close matches with a qualifying relative to verify with. It would have to wait until this year when his DNA was compared to a close family member by the University of North Texas School of Biological Science Forensic Unit. This wasn't an easy task, however. I have no idea what happened to his mother, but my guess is she's no longer alive. The DNA Doe Project said usually we are able to use the DNA of living relatives to confirm the identities of our Doe, but in this case, there was no one close enough to meet the standards set by the medical examiner. She went on to explain that they took the extraordinary step of exhuming Carl Isaacs' father in order to make the final determination. This is why there was such a long space in identifying Carl. It probably would have been a much shorter case had he ever been reported missing, although I'm not sure when his parents passed away. John Clinton Doe was a case close to the hearts of many, and a private investigator from Stevens Point had been working on identifying him for a long time. He worked it from 2013 to 2018 when he referred the case to the DNA Doe Project. There was even a group called the Find JCD Project, formed in 2015, and it was focused solely on identifying Carl. So while his father was no longer alive and he wasn't reported missing, people very much cared, and they adopted him into their lives as if they knew him and he mattered to them. It turns out that in March of 1992, Carl was sentenced to 5 years in prison for burglary and vandalism of golf carts. This happened along the Del Brook Golf Course in Delavan, Virginia. He was also convicted in a string of burglaries. This would morph into him living in 3 different prisons beginning in April of 1992. Once the fall of 1993 arrived, Carl was being housed in the Oakville Correctional Institute in Oregon, Wisconsin. There were periods of time that he was released to house arrest to his mother's home in Madison, Wisconsin, and later to a halfway house on Odana Road, and by April of 1995, he was back again at his mother's home. He would eventually disappear from her home in Walworth on April 16, 1995. And this was the last time he was ever seen or heard from again. I imagine his mother didn't report him missing because the authorities knew. At the time, a judge in Walworth County immediately signed an arrest warrant for Carl on the grounds of a probation violation. The warrant was renewed over time, and it was still valid in April of 2018. His defense attorney described him as an unemployed young man with few friends who tended to follow others in what they did. This is why I said he doesn't seem like a bad guy. He had a history of both drug and alcohol abuse. He felt remorse and he tried to make it right. Carl himself testified that he hadn't harmed anyone in the burglaries, but he fully admitted to the judge that this didn't mean his crimes were victimless. He understood there were victims. He stated that he believed he needed to move once he's released in order not to repeat his mistakes. He fully admitted he easily falls in line with others, and he follows their lead. He said he believes he'd do it again if he doesn't get away, that he's not strong enough not to follow. They also noted that he tried really hard to make things right. He cooperated with investigators, and he helped them unravel multiple burglaries, and he named his co-conspirators, who ranged in age from 17 to 22. A little digging shows that Oregon, Wisconsin is in Dane County. Carl was found in Rock County, near Clinton, Wisconsin. So it was maybe around 50 miles, so it's not impossible that he walked. In April of 1995, the temperatures around that time were 50 degrees during the day at its warmest and down to the 30s at night. Hypothermia could have set in, especially if he got wet, and it appears the wind was up to 20 miles per hour at one point. The authorities explained he ran with a group of guys who broke into businesses and residences in 1991. Unfortunately for him, he was arrested at age 18 and tried as an adult. The prosecutor suggested the 17-year-old participated in alcohol-fueled rampages, which included a break-in at a local liquor store. During the investigation into discovering his identity, witnesses came forward to report that they had seen a young man appearing intoxicated running through the creek a year prior, on October 30th, 1994. For a long time, they assumed this was him, and they dubbed the man River Guy. This also led them to believe it was perhaps drugs, and they believed this was John Clinton Doe. But we know now that this was impossible, as he was incarcerated at that time. Carl was only 21 when he passed away. This means that when he was arrested for breaking into the golf course, he was just 18, barely more than a kid. I have no idea how he lived his life, but there's something so sad in not getting a chance to turn it all around. He went unidentified for 26 years. If he had lived to get that second chance, he would have been just 47 years old today. Thank you everybody for watching and listening. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Take care of yourselves and each other.